My name is Martin Madert with the Witness to War Foundation, and the following interview is part of the United States Marine Corps Vietnam Tankers Association History Project. This interview is being conducted at the VTA reunion in St. Louis, Missouri on September 24th, 2017. Interviewees are members of the VTA. The purpose of the History Project and the interview is to capture the experiences of our Vietnam veterans and make them available for future generations.
I was with 1st Tanks Battalion in Da Nang, Vietnam. My name is Joseph Vernon. I was a sergeant in the Marine Corps, and I arrived in Da Nang December 22nd, 2000, that would have been fun, 1966. And I stayed there till Valentine's Day, February 14th, 1968, which is well over my tour. I was involuntarily extended twice because of the Tet Offensive and the fact that we lost a terrific Marine on the night of February 6th, 1966. And his job was the most critical in the unit, and I was asked politely by the colonel to take his place. And I knew the job, I knew how to do it, but he died on the 6th and I was leaving on the 10th, and so I got involuntarily extended. So
we'll come back to that. I definitely want to get some more details on that. But first, tell me about the men in your company. Who do you remember, and what was your initial role when you got in country?
Well, one of our closest members, and perhaps our leader or bus driver, as we call him, is Steve Falk. And Steve and I were in country together at the same time. He left 3 days after Jim's death, February 9th, and I ultimately ended up leaving on the 14th. And Steve is a born hunter, and he's hunted and located 29 and perhaps 30 of Marines, all enlisted but one officer who's here at this reunion, Major Jack Schuyler. And Steve has located a phenomenal number of veterans that all knew each other, served together at the same time in the same unit. Were in the same compound for a period of time. Guys that go home, guys that come in, go to gun companies. We were H&S company. So as they rotated to a different unit, we lost track of them in country. But Steve's now located 29 of them. 22 are still alive. We've lost the remainder, including Sergeant Seffrins, who is pictured here, and just happened to be my bunkmate and also my best friend when we were in Vietnam, killed February 6, 1968. Oddly enough, there's about a dozen of us that are still actively reunioning on our own. And we have a dozen guys that will show up at a house in Oceanside for a week, or St. Louis, Missouri, or Lake of the Ozarks. We've been to New York, we've been to Florida, Washington, D.C., of course, where our first reunion was. And Steve found us all after he turned 60 and started suffering from severe PTSD, as we all do. I have never met a combat Marine that doesn't have PTSD. We help each other, our unit. And every reunion we pray together, we make every meal together, we don't go out, we party together, and we hold hands, we set a place for our fallen brothers at the table, and then initially we told stories, all the things that we know in our head, but perhaps didn't want to talk about. that we're constantly asked by others, tell me about the war. Some of us are born talkers, others are just silent. But together we're a powerful force, and we actually have one Marine who's here, not attending the reunion, but he lives here in St. Louis. And he's come to dinner with us every night. And 7 years ago when we assembled in Florida, he said, well, I don't remember anything about Vietnam, not one thing. Obviously, we all knew him, and he's seen the pictures, remembers nothing. That was 7 years ago. At the end of the 5-day reunion in Lake of the Ozarks, he said, we were drawing a map of what the compound was, where the tanks were, where the retrievers were, where the front gate was, where Bunker 9 was that we all stood guard duty on. We only divided up between 2 tents. We had Hut 4 and Hut 3. I was in 3 and Seffrins was in 3. He was also in 4 for a while. And it's just amazing to me. It's 50 years ago this day. We were all in Vietnam, and Steve has located us, so my hat's off to him. And
now, I do want to ask if you could elaborate on how he lost his life in Vietnam.
it was a horseshoe ambush, and a squad of Marines on standard patrol walked into it and immediately came under heavy fire, and there were casualties immediately. Each unit has what they call a reactionary force, and the day of his death, he went to Steve Falk and said, Steve, I drew some other function. I forget what it was. But why don't we switch? Because I want to go out with the reactionary force if they go out tonight. And so Steve switched and took the mundane job, which probably cost him his life, if you follow me. Steve died that night along with Jim. He is the most horrific example of PTSD that we have in our group, because he feels responsible for a very good friend's death. And it never avoids it, and constantly is reminded of it, and loves all of us with all his heart, and he loves his wife and his kids, but he's a tough guy, and no disrespect intended, but he just is very challenging. And his wife of 48 years is a saint. And so, you marry the whole package, not just the package that makes you happy. You gotta marry the whole package, and she did, and she's wonderful. And she's here. All of our wives are here. I won't say all of them, but the majority of our wives are here. And we even had, we have a guy from Chicago where Jim lived that helped with a lot of the research that the result is this book. And we've all visited the wall together, and we ghosted Jim's picture when he was 21 into that film. So it's really, he's there with us, and he's with us here, tonight. A great guy. So he led the reactionary force, went out to the site of the ambush, as a lot of us did, and he was the hero. He immediately went to the rescue from Safe Harbor. He went to the rescue of an injured Marine. Jim was a muscular guy, strong as an ox. Threw him over his shoulder and ran him back to Safe Harbor. Went out and got another one. Went out and got an NVA soldier. No, my mistake. Arvin soldier. Little teeny guy. said he wasn't even heavy. Stood up to retrieve the fourth, and took a bullet right in the head. Standing next to him was my boss, Lieutenant R.J. Harrison, and R.J. said he took 2 rounds. His weapon, pistol, he was an officer, he carried a pistol, and he was shot twice. One in the barrel of the weapon, which exploded in his hand, injuring his hand numerous places. And then he caught a bullet in the shoulder and one in his bicep. And I know all of that because of conversations, but I was the guy that was politely asked by the colonel to submit Jim for the Medal of Honor. And I interviewed every survivor from our unit. The reactionary force was actually made up of 2 different units. We have no idea who the other guys were, but one of those guys is here. Posted a notice on the message board Friday that if anyone knew anything about the night Jim died, please come see me. Well, we couldn't find him, so I answered the message and said there's 7 of us here that all were there either in spirit or in attendance, and we'd love to talk to you. So last night, Steve sat with him for at least an hour that we all witnessed, and I said, when you guys are done, Steve, just give him my phone number, all my contact information. He can contact me later, because one-on-one, you're going to learn more than 5 guys trying to say their opinion of what happened and how come. But I had the real story, and the real story, he deserved the Medal of Honor. We had a little collusion between career officers, and Jim got the Bronze Star, and a major got the Silver Star, formulating a inaccurate recollection of what happened and who did what. And Major Schuyler, who is also here, retired major, heard about it, went to the commanding officer and said, you got to stop this. This is an atrocity. He said, I can't jeopardize my career by submitting a senior officer for a medal and then admitting that I screwed up. It'll stand. And Jack, I don't want to hear any more about it from you. Case was closed. There was nothing we could do. Jim's little brother, Ray, also a retired Marine, lives in Southern California. We've met him. He's come to our tankers reunion. We invited him here, chose not to come. But he wants it reopened. But we all know that post 50 years, the death of the Marine who received the Silver Star, there's no gain. We all know that what he did deserved the Medal of Honor, and our hearts are held high, and just the way it is. But each of us died a little that night. Some paid a heavier price. So my interview question was, whom might I have become? I don't know. I was a bright guy, high IQ. Jim and I talked about going to OCS from Vietnam, and my father was a career Marine. He didn't retire from the Marine Corps, he chose to get out when he figured Korea was going to break out. 4 years in Southeast Asia as an ace pilot, flying SBDs off a aircraft carrier was enough action for the farm boy from Missouri. So he was highly decorated and moved on. So my question really isn't as much for me because I'm kind of a reality guy, and I know we can't go back and change anything. So it really is, what could Jim have become? His IQ was immensely high. He told me at one point he believed it to be from tests 168, which is very, very high. And he would sleep on his desk because it was hard, and it just made him feel harder. He was your consummate Marine. First to go, last to come, first to dive in, which is what cost him his life. And but he was very, very smart. He and Jack, I learned this trip. Jack was a major and might have been a captain when we were there. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. But he and Jim would sit up on the comm bunker at night, sometimes all night, just talking. And we all felt it odd at one of the reunions that we all referred to him as our best friend. And at dinner the other night, Jack said, "Me too."
Just one last question before we have to wrap up. Is there a fun memory you have of Jim between the two of you that you'd like to remember?
He was just a happy guy, and he loved to go to China Beach, as we all did. And in this book that Steve put together from the photographs of our collective collection of his stories and pictures of Jim at China Beach. He'd play volleyball. We had a volleyball to beat all volleyballs. It was about 6 feet in diameter. And we'd roll on it, roll in the beach and play in the water. And coming from Chicago, he was in the water a lot. I grew up in Southern California, so I was in the water a lot. And we were able to do that. But he loved taking photographs, and I have some great photographs of him. And of course, I have him in the forethought of my memory as well. So he's just a great guy. But he could have been a policeman, which was his goal. But quite frankly, as he matured in Vietnam, I would be worried about his ability to control his temper, because he'd get madder than hell. He'd just want to go out and take something out, and he would. But he was too intelligent for that. He could have become a lawyer. He could have gone into politics. He could have been a career Marine and a real leader, because he was an inspiration to all of us. So we all lost a best friend that night, and then we lost others, or others were changed forever. My whole family said that knew me before I went, I came home a way different person. And I've read all the books about PTSD, and when I first was interviewed, there's 17 symptoms of PTSD, and I suffer from 15. I've gotten a lot better after the counseling from the VA. I think they're a marvelous organization. A lot of guys are dissatisfied with them, but I've never had better health care. I've never had easier health care. You just call or set an appointment, go in. Even if you're really sick, you just walk in and they see you. And you get a real live doctor who says, "What's up, Marine?" And it's terrific. So
we're about out of time. I'd like to thank you so much for sharing his story with me. I think that's the most important thing, is to keep their memory alive. But more importantly, I want to thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.